Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Daggett. Today we're going to be doing another tips and tricks video. So I've had a few requests from my different subscribers that I didn't think required a full video tutorial, sort of like just a few small touches, how to draw leaves, how to color certain things, you know, that sort of question. And so I didn't think they required a full tutorial. I thought I'd throw them in a tips and tricks video like I did last time, which you guys apparently loved. It did better than a lot of my other videos. So if these tips and tricks videos are popular, they'll keep coming. Just keep leaving requests in the comments, and that gives me ideas on my next tips and tricks video. Alright, let's go to the overhead. Okay guys, welcome back to the table. Today I'll be covering just a couple of tips and tricks and trying to answer some of the questions I've had in the comment section of my videos regarding design tips and a few different things that I didn't think required an entire tutorial. So this is much like the last tips and tricks video that I did. We're just going to go over a few things in brief detail, and if you want me to elaborate on anything or do a new video on one of these topics in particular, just let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so I was asked recently how to draw different types of leaves. Now this might seem like a funny topic, or you know, why is that important? But it sort of is. If you're drawing different style flowers in your designs, they're all going to have different shaped leaves depending on what flower it is. And specifically in tattooing or in Japanese tattoo, which is sort of what I specialize in drawing, the leaves can make the design look different. So if you've got different types of flowers with different types of leaves, it's important that they're accurate and match the type of flower that we're doing. So the first one we'll do here is a peony leaf. So we're drawing peony roses. How do we draw a peony leaf? So we're going to draw a curved line for all of these to start them off. And this one will be just a simple curved line. And then stemming off of that, we're going to do a couple more curved lines, but they're going to follow the same direction. Even if they're coming from this side of that curve, they're going to try and curve back this way. We'll do another one at the bottom there. Pretty simple so far to draw in the actual leaf shape. You start sort of at the bottom here and draw in a nice curve, and the same thing from the other side. Coming here to this one, we're going to draw a curve. One of the lines will sit behind this front part of the leaf here. And the other curve out the back. And then same for this last one here. And then we'll do these little lines or veins through the center of the leaves. And I'm going to keep them nice and close together. And again, they're going to be curving as though they're trying to follow our original direction. And you want to do them all the way up the leaf. Now some people do like to stylize their leaves and change them a little bit. It's up to you. You can add little textures to the edge of the leaves. This is just a real basic framework for drawing peony leaves, and you can change them as you desire. To add a stem is pretty straightforward. We're going to follow our line down and just double it up. And wherever it intersects a new part of the leaf, you can just double it up a little bit. Okay, and that's how we're doing a peony leaf. And we'll come back to lining this one. Drawing chrysanthemum leaves is a little bit similar. We're going to do a curve like that again. This time, instead of making the curve follow our direction, we're going to sprout them out from either side. So one like that, and one like that. Now you can see what's important here is that this leaf is going to have a similar structure to this one, but the overall finish and look of it is going to be completely different. So that's what we're talking about here with different styles and, you know, different ways of drawing. Okay, so what we're going to do from here is find our angle here between this line and this line. And we're going to start a couple of centimeters up from there and come out, back in, out and back in like that. So you actually want these leaves to be a little bit wider around here instead of at the base, around the midpoint. Now starting from that point again, you're going to come out wide and then back in, creating another little point here and doing the same for this part of the leaf. So you can see straight away the shape is a little bit different, and these are actually connected. So these leaves are technically separated by the stem here, whereas this is one leaf that's all connected. Okay. So from here we're going to draw in our veins, and I like to do these ones a little bit wider and a little bit separate. This is a style preference thing. You can change it up if you'd like. You can do them really close together. I think they look a little bit better if they are wide and separate because of the nature of the next part we're going to add to it. The veins also follow a slightly different direction. These ones, instead of following the same direction as the shape of the leaf, these ones curve the opposite way and they flow down and into the center vein. Okay, so this will be the most distinguishing part of drawing this particular leaf, and that is that we're going to create a texture that goes all the way around the outside of the leaf. To do this, we're just doing little bumps, starting at that little joining section, and each of these little curves are going to join into one of the veins. Okay, so we're going to do a little curve here, and then a bigger curve that joins into that one, another curve, and you keep drawing in these little curved lines, joining each of those little points up. Now you can see that there's a complete difference between the two styles of leaf. So if you're drawing a peony rose and you do this style of leaf, it might look a little bit incorrect. It might look wrong because it's the wrong style of leaf. It doesn't matter too much. You can change the leaves around a little bit if you want to do different leaves on different flowers. I don't think anyone's going to question you, but if you want to be accurate or you want to make it look exact to that type of flower, more recognizable I should say, this might be the way to do it. So we have peony and chrysanthemum. We can double up that stem on the chrysanthemum as well. And the last one I think they asked for was how to draw rose leaves, like on a classic red rose, right? Which is quite common in traditional style tattooing, and even in modern tattooing, roses will never die out. So we're going to start by doing the same curved line. And I might give it a little flick off at the end, so it curves and then just flicks at the end. Okay, we're going to do the same leaf shape that we did for these first leaves, wide at the bottom, but these ones are going to come into a more acute tip. Okay, so the tip is a little bit sharper, and it's almost like an arrowhead or a spearhead. We can double up that stem, and to draw our lines in, they're going to be these S curves, okay, which I've talked about in previous videos. We're going to use S curves from the outside to the inside, and similar to the chrysanthemum leaves, I don't want to put too many veins throughout the center, just spread them out a little bit. And you can put as many or as few as you'd like. Some people like to put a lot of them. Again, that just depends on the style you like to do. I don't like to put too many. Okay, now real rose leaves will have little spikes all along the edges. They'll have this sort of zigzaggy pattern. I've seen people draw them in this style for tattoo flash. I've even seen them tattooed this way. I'm not a big fan of it. In my opinion, it just doesn't look great. But, if that's the sort of thing you like to do, feel free to go ahead and do it. It's a style preference. Some people like to do it. And again, we're not talking about drawing a realistic leaf here. None of these are super realistic. This is more like an interpretation of them that can be shown in a more simple manner, like tattooing or cartoons or something like that. A real simple style of drawing. So for this one, we're going to do something similar to our chrysanthemum leaf, but instead of doing such obvious and large curves, they're just going to be small little bumps. So very small curves following along the edge of our leaf. And this will just give the outside of the leaf a slightly rough look to it, which is not going to be completely spiky, but just gives it a little bit of texture around the edges so it's not entirely smooth. And that's how we draw a few different leaves for a few different types of flowers. And if you have any other flowers you want to know how the leaves look, because I don't always show that in the tutorial on how to draw them, then let me know in the comments down below. These, I think, are the three main flowers I've shown you how to draw, so this is how you do the leaves for them. Okay, so I've just finished outlining these different leaves. You can see I've done this one on a different piece of paper. That'll become clear in a moment why I've done that. But basically I've done all of the outside of the leaves in a 0.8. The stem of all of them is done with a 5. And all of the veins are done with a combination of a 5, a 3, and an 8, with the exception of my peony leaf, which I've just gone and done with a 5. You could do that with a 3 if you wanted to have them a little bit closer together. So this brings me perfectly to the other point of today's video, and that was, what art supplies do I use? That was the question that was asked, is what art supplies do I use? Now it depends. It depends if I'm doing professional work, like I'm doing a commission painting for someone, or I'm doing a painting for my portfolio. If I'm sketching, I'll use different supplies to if I'm doing professional work. And if I'm doing something for YouTube, for you guys, I also use different supplies for ease of use and clarity for filming. Okay, so the first one we'll go over is Copic Markers. Some of you may be familiar with Copic Markers. They're pretty popular, and they give you a pretty distinct look. So I've been using these Artline drawing system fine liners. You get this pack of 6, and it comes with everything from a 0.1 to a 0.8. You get all different sizes in there. That's been really good to me. Prior to this, I was using Copic multi-liners. My main ones were a 5, an 8, and a 0.3. Now for me, they were a little bit too expensive. I find that the quality is not that much better. The Copic multi-liners do have really good quality ink and good quality nibs. Your line work ends up super clean with these, but I haven't found them to be more beneficial than using a cheaper fine liner such as the art lines, or maybe like micro pigment liners. You know, they tend to be pretty much the same in quality. I haven't found much of a difference. In terms of Copic markers, we've got a sketch marker here and a chow marker here. They also do the classic, I'm not sure what they're called, but the Copic original maybe, and they have a bullet nib and they do not have a brush nib, and I found that that's not really good for drawing this style of work. That bullet nib might be really good for doing stuff like manga or something along those lines, anime style drawing, but really not good for doing this sort of stuff. And the other thing is, I tend not to use Copic markers in my professional work. They are strictly for sketching purposes. I went through a phase where I bought a whole bunch of these, and so I've got a big box of them sitting around, and I just use them for when I want to sketch something, or maybe if I'm missing a color in my color set and I just need to substitute it with something, I might use a Copic marker. There's nothing wrong with them, other than the fact that for me they're too expensive, and for the big pieces of art that I do, I'd be replacing 2 or 3 markers at a time, which is too expensive for me. And the other thing too is that they don't give me the style that I'm after. You know, you're after a specific style. If you were an oil painter, you wouldn't be using Copic markers because it doesn't match the style and aesthetic that you like. So they're the main reasons I sort of stopped using them, but they are excellent art supplies. So we'll go ahead and start with these, and I'll demonstrate on the middle there. So this will basically be to show you what the different techniques that I've used in the past and what I use now for my professional work look like, and why it's important to find what medium suits you. So we'll start, we're going to color the stem area in yellow, and I'm using a cadmium yellow from the Copic Chow range here. We're going to come in with our pale olive now, and we're coming in close to that outside edge and flicking back towards the center. Outside of that, we'll take our cadmium yellow again and flick in and over the top of that color. And to do our darker portions, we'll take an olive green. So this one's a pale olive, and this one here is an olive, just an olive. And we're going to use that for our shaded areas, coming in from the center and flicking out into our pale olive. Okay, and so that's the sort of look you get. I'm certainly not the best with Copic markers. You can probably tell there are people that do wonderful things using Copic markers. I'm certainly not great with them, and I was a little bit better in the past, but I haven't used them for a really long time. But this is just to give you a rough example comparison of the 3 different types of materials that I've used in my work. The next supply we're going to talk about is the Ecoline brush pen. This needs absolutely no introduction on my channel. I've used Ecoline brush pens in, I think, every single video. Yeah, I think I've done this in every single video on my channel. I've used the Ecoline brush pens. Now, I was using these in my own work, my portfolio work, but I haven't used them in a long time. And the reason for that is, well, there's a few reasons. The first one being is, again, they weren't matching the aesthetic that I was going for. They got really close. That's why I started using them in the beginning, because they got really close, but they weren't quite there yet. They were also a little bit cheaper than the option that I'm currently using, which made them a little bit more affordable at the time. But nonetheless, they are a really good art supply. Ecoline brush pens, yeah, can't go past them. They're really good markers. And so we're going to be using those now. You pretty much already know how these things look, but we use the Ecoline brush pen and a watercolor brush pen as well. So what these are essentially are little watercolor brushes, which you can unscrew and fill this section up with water. And they have like a little bit of give to them so that you can actually squeeze more water into your tip. Okay, and this gives you some control over how much water you're actually using with your brush pen. So we're pretty much going to color this as I always do, coming in at the base here with black, and blending that out. And we're going to go around and shade it with the black. Okay, I've shaded the leaf using our black Ecoline brush pen. I'm going to come in now with a lemon yellow, and I'm going to use that for the stem, and we'll probably use that for some of the outside of the leaves as well. Now that's the stem of the flower done in that color. And then we're going to take a deep green and use that for the main color on our leaves. Okay, so that's what it looks like in the Ecoline brush pens. Like I said, I've used these in the past for some of my portfolio work. I do like them. They are great pens. They do make fantastic. They do make for fantastic artwork. I just find that they weren't suiting the aesthetic I was after. Now, getting on to the reason that this last one is on a different piece of paper that I've just taped in there. The reason for that is I'm using Liquitex acrylic inks. Okay, they come in little jars that look like this. Now, the reason I've done this on different paper is this is hot press watercolor paper, and this here is cold press watercolor paper, and they tend to give you different results. The inks tend to be a little bit too runny to work on the hot press, so I need something with a little bit of tooth that will actually bite that ink. Okay, so we're using the cold press for our Liquitex inks. Now, these inks are, in my opinion, the best way to do tattoo flash. You can do tattoo flash using all different materials and different inks. I found Liquitex to be the best for me. I got this tip off a friend of mine a long time ago, and it's just been great ever since I tried using them. I'll give you a few examples on the screen now of different paintings I've done using Liquitex. Okay, so as you can see, I use the Liquitex inks for most of my portfolio and professional work, and it gives a real painterly look to it, which looks traditional in my opinion. And that's a weird thing to say, but it looks like what tattoo flash looked like to me growing up. That's the way I saw tattoo flash. It had that watercolor look to it, but it was a little more bold than watercolor and had some big flat areas of color. It was really solid and vibrant. And I found for me the Liquitex inks, being that they're translucent inks on white watercolor paper, they tend to give off really, really vibrant colors, which is great. Material wise, we've got a glass of water here. That's our dipping glass. I've got a little palette and I've just put a little bit of black, phthalo green and cadmium yellow. And I'm also using 2 brushes. I always use 2 brushes when working with these. One of them is my dry brush. It's not really dry, but I don't dip it in the water. I use it simply to transfer color to the paper or transfer ink to the paper. And the slightly bigger brush is my blending brush. And I use this like I do my watercolor brush. I dip it in water and blend out with it. The reason I use these instead of the little watercolor brushes is they use a strange like plastic synthetic for the watercolor brushes, and I don't really like the way that works with the inks that I'm using. So I like to just use these. I mean, they're still synthetic, but they're like a synthetic nylon hair sort of substitute, and I use those and it transfers the inks quite nicely. So you do have to work really quickly with this particular inks. That's just sort of the nature of working with them. And we're going to go in with our black and lay on some black here. And then we'll take our watercolor, our water brush, and blend out that black to a white. One of the great things I found using these particular inks is that once they're dry, they're pretty much waterproof. They're not completely waterproof. I suppose once they're dry, they're water resistant, meaning I can go over the top of them with other water-based products once they've dried, and they won't blend and get all muddy. So if I wanted to go over this, I let this dry for a little bit, and then if I wanted to go over it with a other watercolor product or like a watercolor paint or something like that, it won't blend with the black and muddy up the colors. You can actually go straight over the top of it once it's dry, which is a really nice feature to have when you want to layer colors on top of each other and do something like that. Now, one of the reasons I don't use these acrylic inks in my videos is just for ease of use, honestly. The first thing being that it's a lot of work in coordination with the 2 brushes for me, and the reason for that is you've got to work really quickly. For the best results, you've got to work really quickly between your 2 brushes, keeping one of them for color only and one of them for water only, and that can be really difficult when I'm trying to explain something on video. And the other thing too is that you've got to work super quickly. So while trying to explain something to you guys and do the color at the same time, it doesn't work too well. It actually is really difficult. So that's sort of the reason I don't use these in my tutorials. So another really nice thing about these inks is that they are mixable. So I've used plain thylacine green for the leaf here, and now we're going to take a little bit of that yellow and mix it in with our green to get a much brighter green tone. So one of the things that, in my opinion, makes the Liquitex acrylic inks more useful for this sort of work as opposed to the Ecoline markers or Copic markers is they're directly mixable. So we've actually taken some of our green and some of that cadmium yellow and mixed them together to give us this really bright, almost acid green color, which means you can take your colors and mix them just like paint, but they act like ink. So there's some value in that as well, depending on the type of work you do. If you're good with your colors and you're good at mixing colors to create your own colors, then this is invaluable because it acts just like acrylic paints. You can mix your colors together. It sort of dries like acrylics, but the difference being is you can use them like watercolor. Alright guys, and that's pretty much it. A few honorable mentions. I do always use a Sharpie when I'm doing my portfolio work in that. Whenever I want to create a really big thick line, I'll use a Sharpie. You can just use your 0.8 marker and go over and over and over the same lines. But if you want to do it in one quick, smooth stroke, you can use a Sharpie. They are alcohol based, which means if you're using anything that's water based, your Ecoline markers or your Liquitex inks, they are compatible and they won't blur or smudge your Sharpies. Another one will be the gel pen. It's not a particular brand. I've never looked at the brand. It's a Uniball. but it's just a white gel pen, and I use this for highlights, to add highlights to my drawings. Okay, so you can go over nearly any media. It works over the top of Copics, Ecolines, and the Liquitex. So a white gel pen is another one. In terms of sketching, doing pre-sketches for stuff, a Techniclick mechanical pencil. Any mechanical pencil will work. I actually really like the Tombow brand, but I've lost my Tombow mechanical pencil. I do need to buy a new one. But yeah, mechanical pencil, and I like the ones with the side switch and not a top switch. It's just a little more convenient halfway through drawing and sketching to just click with your thumb here and continue sketching. So a good mechanical pencil will take you far as well. Of course, an eraser. And what else do I use? The Molotow masking liquid pens. These things are really cool. Basically, you've got a pen full of masking fluid, and you put this down on the paper. You can draw over the top of it, and as soon as you rub it, it comes off almost, it turns into like a latex, and when you rub it, it comes off, leaving you with the white paper underneath. So this can be really useful if you're being really careful to not go out of lines, or if you want to leave white areas in your drawing, maybe a pattern or something like that. Masking liquid is really good, and I use that occasionally when I'm doing dragon scales or snake scales. And the last one is the Pentel Touch brush pen thing that I've got here. I've gone over this in previous videos as well. It's just called Touch. It's a Japanese brand of some sort. It is from Pentel, and it basically has a small, not quite a brush, but like a small soft nib. Let's see if I can get that in focus. Okay, it's got the small soft nib, and that lets us change from thin lines to thick lines, or thin lines this way. Okay, you can get a variety of line widths and line weights just using the one pen. The only reason I don't use the touch marker to outline everything, even though I'd like to, is that it is water-based, which means as soon as I go over it using a watercolor brush or any of my inks, it turns into a big black mess. So I tend not to use the touch marker, brush marker there for any of my outlining work. But if I want to add something at the end of my drawing, or sometimes to do the signature on my artworks, I will use the touch pen because it is really nice. We have finally hit 1,000 subscribers. Guys, this may not seem like a big deal to all of you, but to me, this is a really big deal, and I really, really do appreciate the support. Like I said, for all you guys subscribing, watching, and commenting on my videos, I do really appreciate it. Please keep it up, and I'll keep the videos coming for you guys as well. Please leave a comment in the comment section down below, letting me know what you'd like to see next time, and also letting me know if you have any questions, basically, that I can answer either through the comments or through another tips and tricks video. I try to get back to every single comment that's on my page, so that you guys get the best information that I can possibly give you. Don't forget to head over to Facebook at Daggett Designs to check out my online portfolio and any other upcoming work that I have going on. And more than anything, guys, like this video, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Hit the notification bell to make sure you stay notified. Alright guys, keep on drawing, keep on being creative, and I'll see you in the next video. Alright, bye.